Welcome to the Broken Talk Show, everybody. I am your host, Kenneth Glenn, and today I'm a little late to this, as usual, but I wanted to talk about this. So Charlie Kirk spoke at Charlie Kirk's memorial, and when he spoke, he said something that media picked up on, and they were calling him anti-Semitic. They were saying that he should have said what he said. Things like that. MSNBC, New York Times, or New York Post, and CNN all commented on what he said. And I'm going to read to you what he said. He wrote, Charlie was a Christian evangelist. He wasn't just a conservative or a Republican or a culture warrior, though he was all those things brilliantly. He was a man who believed the only path forward was repentance, turning back to truth. And that's why he was so fearless, because he knew the stakes. He was telling the truth. You're wrong and you need to change. And that's what got Jesus killed. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamp-lit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about, what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? And the people in power, the ones who can't stand being exposed, they don't debate you. They don't argue with your ideas. They just kill you. Or they try to silence you forever. And that's what happened to Jesus. And in a smaller way, that's what happened to Charlie. So that's what he said at the memorial. He doesn't compare Charlie to Jesus, but he kind of points out the similarities of their life. You know, Charlie was a Christian. Jesus obviously was the founder of Christianity. And they were both killed. Now, I'm not sure what the reasoning for Charlie being killed was, but it is very likely that it could have been because of his faith. I don't think it's because of his faith, but it very well could have been, right? And Tucker, who, by the way, he's been very critical of Israel in the last year. He had a big thing with Ted Cruz earlier this year where he basically crushed him in a debate. And he's been like teaming up with Candace occasionally, stuff like that. He called what's happening in Gaza a genocide. He talked about the forced starvations and stuff like that. So he's been very critical of Israel. So everybody, when they heard this, including me, jumped on the bandwagon of, oh, he's talking about the Jews. Because who killed Jesus Christ? Jews killed Jesus Christ. The Pharisees, they were Jewish, they were in charge, and they were the ones that sentenced Jesus Christ to death. And so when we hear that, when we hear about what he said about Charlie, it kind of sounded like he was leaning towards, oh, the Jews killed Charlie Kirk as well. Because of the hummus eating comment. I can sort of picture a scene in a lamp-lit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus thinking, what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? And everybody pointed similarities to Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk, for a while, near like the end of his life, was more critical of Israel. He claimed that they were going to do an ethnic cleansing. He said that a lot of the things were wrong. He didn't like Netanyahu. So when we hear him say this stuff, we instantly think, oh, he's talking about the Jews, right? Or Tucker Carlson's being crazy. He's talking about the Jews again, and he's being based or whatever. But then guess what? Guess what happens? On his show, and you're not going to believe this, on his show, he backtracks his statement and goes, I don't know why everyone thought I was talking about the Jews. Zionists and anti-Semites just make everything about Jews. They think about the same thing. Everybody wants to make everything about the Jews. And it's like, really, dude? So I'm going to play the clip for you now, and I'll get back to you on that.
It takes a certain kind of mindset to see that as an attack on Jews. So the two groups that immediately assumed I was attacking Jews were anti-Semites and Zionists. Both of them reached the same conclusion, like instantly, oh, he's talking about the Jews. And it just points up a deep truth that we should remember, which is that anti-Semites and Zionists see the world through the same lens. Both of them think everything is about Jews, for different reasons. And that's just not my worldview. I don't think everything's about Jews. Like, I have whole periods of my day where I don't brood about Jews. I mean, it's so crazy. And it's actually the definition of craziness. You like see things that aren't there. If I was trying to make a point about Israel, I would just say it. Why wouldn't I? That's the last thing I intended to do. And I think it's very bad for your soul to become obsessed either because of hate or because of ethno-narcissism. I mean, both are kind of the same thing. They're twins with an ethnic group. It's crazy. Like, I think they're both really sick and need to pull back from this. And you do see it a lot online where everybody on, your X feed is talking about the Jews. How is that good? It's not good for the Jews. It's not good for anybody else. It's all kind of a species of mental illness. And because it doesn't reflect reality. Like in real life, I have a million interests and concerns. In fact, almost all of them that have nothing to do with Jews or Israel, or like, it's just not an obsession for me at all. But it is an obsession for Zionists in a very unhealthy way, and an obsession for anti-Semites and also in an unhealthy way. So and they feed off each other. They're symbiotic, and one kind of helps create the other and needs the other. It's very bad. It's sick, and it's bad, again, bad for people who engage in it and bad for this country. So I hope we can get off that topic, treat Israel like we just treat a country with overlapping interests and diverging interests. It's, it shouldn't be that different in our mind from Malaysia.
So there we go. He's like, not everything's about the Jews. Not everything's about the Jews. Yeah, we get that. We know not everything's about the Jews, obviously. But when you're like, not an innuendo, but when you're like hinting at, these guys in a room eating hummus, and you're directly comparing it to the death of Jesus Christ, which is proven to be done by Jews. It says it right in the Bible. It's historically accurate. Most historical scholars and biblical scholars would tell you that the Jews were in charge of killing Jesus Christ. And he goes on. It's like, oh no. Why would you even say I said that? Or what, are you stupid? What are you stupid? You thought I was talking about that? Why would you be so stupid? And it's like, really? So it's like, and people were sitting here trying to talk about for like a month, not a month, but for a while, Tucker Carlson, not Tucker, people were trying to say that Nick Fuentes was the Fed. Oh, Nick got the call. Oh, Nick this, Nick that. Really? Like, what is this all about? And this is horrible. I don't know what he was trying to do here, but this is not a good look for Tucker at all. To sit here and make this claim, knowing what he's doing. Tucker knew what he was doing. And he just backtracks his statement instantly. And no one really seems to be talking about it. Even in the comments below, they're still calling Nick a shill for Israel. And this is ridiculous. Quote, everybody on your X feed is talking about the Jews. How is that a good thing for anybody? It's a species of mental illness. Like, buddy, you brought it up. He brought up the topic. And he kind of hinted at Charlie Kirk also being killed by Israel. I'm not sure what his thoughts on the theory is. I didn't really pay attention to that, but I know Candace, who he's really close with, was saying that. And also, by the way, Candace also backtracked on her statement as well about Israel killing Kirk. She's like, oh no, I didn't say that. Let's see if I can find it actually. Let's see if I can see what she wrote. It's crazy how I never once said that Israel murdered Charlie Kirk, but the Zionists are all repeating that without a shred of evidence. Remember, if they aren't lying, they aren't breathing. And so, you know, who's the real shill? Who do you think the real shill is? They're trying to talk about how Nick was a Fed earlier this year. Candace and Tucker backtracked their statements. They brought their statement back. And Nick's the only one who's been staying consistent. So anyways, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I thought this was just a super interesting situation that Tucker backtracked his statement. So anyways, I hope you liked the video, guys. Please leave a comment, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys later. Peace.